Hey folks, Steve here with a very special video for you today. This video begins my journey through Axis Empires Ultimate Edition. Now, this is a long time coming. I've had some delays recently where I've had this set up for a while, but I had a convention and I was sick and I was trying to play some other stuff quickly, and that took longer than expected. So we're a couple months later than probably I would have wanted to actually give this a shot. So here we be. This very first video, we're going to take a look at Case White, the training scenario. I'm new to Totaler Krieg and Dicenso and Axis Empires, the whole thing, because at heart I am a World in Flames guy. That's really the strategic World War II game that I am used to, that I'm used to playing. But I've definitely wanted to get this to the table and really start learning this other system, of which I've invested in the Ultimate Edition. So I should really do that, right? Now, this trading scenario, it turns out, is actually trickier than you might think. And in fact, I had a different recording of this video that I threw in the trash because I discovered that I was not doing something right in terms of execution, not getting the rules right, and I wasn't doing very well. Which is interesting because I feel as though, as a training scenario, or even just invading Poland, this should be a pretty straightforward exercise. And from maybe an alternative for like World in Flames, it is more or less a straightforward exercise for you to learn the systems. But here, just due to the way that the game works, it is actually much more of a puzzle. And I will attribute some of that puzzle like nature to the not what you see is what you get nature of the rules. And that is something that, just for this video, for any other videos that I will eventually get to covering Axis Empires, that is my personal hurdle to this system. I am very used to the what you see is what you get of World in Flames, where the units on the map behave and operate much like you could expect them to, I guess, within reason. What's an air unit? How does an air unit operate? How does it exist on the map? And what is it doing on the map and executing a procedure that is very much in line with a bomber does a bombing type of thing and returns to base, or a fighter does an escorting type of thing, or a combat air patrol type of thing and goes home. In this game, those air assets, especially without Schiffskrieg being used, kind of operate very, very differently. And even the way that, say, the retreat rules work lend itself to a very different way of thinking through operations than maybe I'm used to in other games. And I guess that's part of the trap, as coming into this game system, you really have to focus on what this particular game system wants you to do, as opposed to what may seem more logical in other game systems. And principally, probably the most important thing in this training scenario to understand, more than almost anything else, is the way that retreats work. And that is where I really failed in my first attempt to understand the system, because I thought, well, I will build up strength. I will attack this location that I really need. I should be able to push my way in. And by doing so, I had created a very strange retreat situation where a unit here retreated to here, which we'll talk about the retreat rules, but picks up this guy, and they all end up in Warsaw, which now makes Warsaw much more difficult to attack, which is not what I thought was going to happen. The retreat rules work such that a retreating unit wants to avoid Zox, which makes a lot of sense. Um, but in the case where uh, they have an option, if they can't go to a Zockless hex, they will go to a hex that may have a Zoc in it but has a friendly unit. But if you have multiple retreat hexes you need to fulfill, then you kind of get caught up in this big route and all the units kind of go together. They're like magnets, they magnetize towards each other and then end up at some logical endpoint, which in this scenario can actually be very hurtful because you can end up with a pile of units in a hex that you are required in one sort of player phase, one player turn, to capture. So the strangeness of this training scenario is, maybe in a big scenario like Barbarossa, you can push units back or around, and you can kind of make use of the extended amount of time that you have to make up for any small errors. Here, the scenario is incredibly tight. You actually have to do it just exactly so to actually win in the time that the game gives you in this scenario. And again, because of the sort of limited area of operations, we're all constrained in this block of hexes right here. A lot can go wrong that can hurt you, and so I was really caught off guard by that. I was kind of unhappy with it because it's like, hey, this if this is a trading scenario, it should provide a lot of room for like exploring how things work, but instead it forces you to really figure out a very particular puzzle, which is a little odd to me. The other is really forcing you to try to understand, like, what does an air force represent? Like, what is this? What is this really saying? What does a blitz marker really say? Because the Air Force unit does some interesting things that maybe don't make a lot of sense if you're just looking at it as a direct, literal simulation, and that's my problem I need to deal with. So now, if I were looking at the actual scenario information here, right? Everything's set up to the scenario, and we are asked to read the introduction of the rule book, which I have done, and also read the rules about zones of control and stacking. Now, to just hit things very simply, ZOCs, zones of control, work about the way you would expect. The one special exception maybe being they're loose enough that you can lay a trail like this, move a unit, and now this unit can advance, not be held by the Zoc, and move one more hex. And now that he's entered enemy Zocs, he's got to stop moving. But we can lay a path open for the units, which is important to understand the way that the Zocs work for that purpose. Otherwise, they generally work the way you would think, blocking supply, blocking this, that, and the other, all that kind of stuff. The stacking rules are pretty straightforward. While elsewhere on the maps there are locations that have restricted stacking, most land hexes are going to have a stacking limit of either 3 units up to 6 steps. So you can kind of have a mishmash of the combination. You could have maybe 2 units that have altogether 6 steps, or 3 steps in one unit, and then another unit has a single step and another unit has 2 steps, so long as you're keeping it to 3 or less units and 6 or less steps. Generally, in this scenario, that's really not going to be a problem for us. The exception would be, yeah, if the poles all got like bunched up in a hex, well, at the end of a phase, you have to eliminate steps to meet the stacking requirement. The problem will be we still are going to have big, massive stacks, I believe, to deal with, where simply trying to bunch up a bunch of the Polish units isn't really going to help us any, or it's not going to help us take the cities that we need to take. Now, the victory conditions require us to take Warsaw, we need to take Posen, we need to take Krakow, which are held by multi-step units, and they also have these one-step units kind of in and around the vicinity that we're going to need to deal with. The actual turn is abbreviated, so we're out of the total sort of sequence of play that would exist, we're skipping the political events. We are going to do the support segment. We are going to do the organization segment. Then we have movement, and then we have combat. And you can see there's a blitz combat. That's where the blitz marker comes in, regular. And then we'll have some reserve movement, and that's it. We skip the final administration phase. So we have very little room for error. Every thing we do is going to have to really matter, and it basically comes down to the Germans getting to move, setting themselves up. Then we're going to do a blitz combat enabled by the blitz marker. There'll be some advance after combat and exploitation to then give us units lined up to perform a final regular combat. So we can essentially get 2 combat phases to take the 3 cities and get into a good place. And we can do that, but again, we're going to have to be very, very careful on how this works. Now, the read as you play rules point us to 2.2.3 to talk about support unit placement. Our only real support unit here is this Air Force, and I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to elect to place it right here. So what does that do? Well, for any combats that occur in that hex, which is currently empty, or adjacent, so here, 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 right around it, we get a column shift to the right, which will be important to help us take Warsaw, to help us take Krakow. So we're going to lay down that air unit. The other thing, and this is the part that I'm really, got me tripped up a bit, is that Air Force, while it is a support marker, is technically still a unit. And by placing it here, we keep Polish units from retreating into this hex. Now, if we had placed it right here, that unit underneath could still retreat out of this hex. But the odd behavior here is because it's considered a unit, these units can't retreat into this hex. That is a little odd to me. And I'm stuck just kind of looking at this going, well, I guess that represents the interdiction that the rules articulate. I guess the units don't feel that's a safe direction to retreat in, maybe. It's a little odd. Because that's certainly not how other, other game systems, that's not how the air units might operate. But here, they're providing that interdiction function. They're providing the combat support of some form of close air support or ground support, and that's how that works. And I figure that this is the best place because we really want to make sure that we can take these two hexes as part of our victory requirements, and we have the fewest units to kind of get in around here. We have enough units over here that taking Posen should not necessarily be as hard. So that's the thinking there. Next, as we read and play, it says to check out 2.2.4 for that's Blitz marker placement. And we can kind of place this guy in many places. I think this is the best place as far as I can tell. At first thought, it's like, oh, well, maybe you put it right here and you get everything. But what's really important is you want it here. That's actually going to get you everywhere that you need it, because the units to be Blitz enabled to do the Blitz combat have to be within 2 hexes of this marker at the time you do the combat. So we're going to do movement first. By the time we're done with movement, all of our units should have been moved in this general direction. They'll all be in range to benefit from the Blitz. That will also give any attacks that involve our mechanized armor units an additional column shift in addition to the Air Force if we're in range of the Air Force. So I'm putting the Blitz marker there. That, I think, is the best place to put it. It gives us the most benefit once we're done with movement, but we kind of have to think about where we would move first before we actually place that Blitz marker. Now, the next thing we would do is look at the organization segment. That's 2.3. This is where we can break down units or build them up. Now, I'm not super well informed on, is there any good point to doing this in this scenario? Like, do you break anybody down? Does that actually get you anything or do anything for you? As best as I could tell, one of the things that I can do, I'm not sure if this is really great, is I could get rid of this unit and actually flip this guy to his full strength, and we have more strength organized this way without this unit than the other. We get like an additional attack or defense point out of the conversion than just having this guy present. It's like we get an extra attack factor for concentrating our firepower here. So as best as I can tell, it's like one combination we can do that may be of value to us, though we lose the ability to maybe leave some units behind for ourselves. So I'm kind of stuck, not really know like what's the best move there. Not 100% confident I know what that will be. So we could come back and fix this. I might go back and say, no, it's actually better to keep it as the 2 units and one with 2 steps, one with a single step. But so it goes. And then the next thing we would be doing is operational movement. Now, very generally, all around the map, it's going to be 1 movement point to move the 1 hex that we need. Or every unit basically has enough to cross, adjacent or get next to the enemy for what we want to do. So movement's really the easy part. It's just a matter now of thinking about where our Zocs are going to be. And that is actually the trickiest part of this, to be quite honest. The reason why Zocs matter so much here is units on the retreat as a prioritization thing, not just a player decision, are going to seek to avoid empty hexes with enemy Zocs. So as an example of this, let's say I did do this move that I described earlier, and let's say we attacked this poor unit right here. Well, if we didn't destroy him outright, or we caused him to flee, he's not going to want to retreat to here because there's enemy Zocs. He's not going to want to retreat to here because there's an enemy Zoc from this unit. He's going to want to retreat to, well, really any hex then that will be empty of Zocs, and assuming everybody's lined up in here, they're going to go to the next best place, which is going to be their buddy. So if this guy had to retreat 2 hexes, he would go 1, pick these guys up, 2, and now we've got many steps in Warsaw, which is a problem. So we have to think through, where do we want to channel the retreats? And again, it's kind of odd to think about. Now, alternatively, if we left this unit here, let's say, well, now there's not a Zoc here. There's not a Zoc here. The Air Force doesn't project a Zoc. It just makes this hex a not retreatable hex itself. So if we hit this guy hard enough, let's say he had a retreat, 3 hexes, well, he would go 1, and then we can't retreat here because that's too close to the origin place. We have to keep moving further away. We don't want to retreat here because there's an enemy Zoc, so we're going to retreat here, and if we had to go a 3rd hex, we could do this, or we could do this, but the important thing is we retreated out of the city, now leaving Warsaw empty, and we could conceivably advance or work our way into Warsaw without resistance. And boy, that feels very feels a bit strange to look at it that way. But so, because you would obviously think the best way to take Warsaw is to get some units next to it to attack it, but in this case it is possible. This would be up to the dice. We'd push this unit out, they would take these guys with them and end up outside the city. To me, what would stop that is a rule that says, you can stop retreating if you enter a stronghold or a fort or a city, a significant location like this. But as best as I can tell, there's no rule for that. So as I try to understand, like, how do I, how can I make this work? I don't know. It's like, okay, what do we do now? The other thing is, there is technically a voluntary retreat conversion if the defending hex contains a city and does not contain a Blitz or a Totsugeki marker. But it notes that defending units retreating through cities do not receive this option. So it's only if we were actually attacking the city. So again, despite the, wow, that's odd, and maybe not how we think it should operate, the best way maybe to clear Warsaw is to convince an enemy unit to retreat through it, which then makes me wonder, do you instead do some other permutation of this Air Force? Because maybe you do want them to retreat in a different way. It's really hard to tell how to do this, which is, I think I'm a little frustrated by that. Like, why am I, my initial thought would be advance my units to the areas that need attacking and attack it to take it. Like, that seems obvious. Here, the way that the game system works and the way the rules all work together is you're kind of figuring out these like weird oddball ways to generate the outcome that you want, or to do things that seems very strange. Like, I don't know, for this unit to come into Warsaw and to somehow pick all these guys up and force them out is a little strange to me. And I guess I have to just level with the way that the game wants to simulate what's happening. But I find that to be a struggle for me in my brain, to be like, no, you've got to do this other thing. You need to proceed in this very different way than you might think. But what it allows us to focus on doing is to create the lanes that we would desire. So having this guy push through Warsaw, maybe attacking, and then we advance after combat, And then we can attack this guy and kind of force him out of Warsaw. So maybe force him to retreat here and then retreat here, and we get into Krakow with no big deal. And then likewise somehow cracking our way into Posen, in which case we have all these other units in here. They've got nowhere to go. They'll take step losses and be defeated. So really dissecting the map position to understand how to get into these places with the least amount of fuss is the puzzle. And it is very easy to fail this puzzle if you try to tackle this maybe like any other strategic game like this. Okay, with the combination, recombination, or breaking down, we've got the 3-step unit. I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. We'll see if that's a foolish mistake, but the whole combination breakdown section of the rules, I still need to kind of get used to that because I can see where breaking down can help a lot. But so this is what we're going to do. The idea is on the Blitz attacks, we're going to focus on attacking this unit, and this unit, with the idea that if we put enough strength in here, we're going to clear Warsaw and have some units either over here or over here, whatever. We'll follow up with some attacks, and once we blow open this area, we should be able to advance after combat, get into a good position. And then what we'll want to do is either attack here or here. I'm not sure which is going to be best yet, with the idea that we're going to want to force this unit to retreat and pull this unit out of Posen, pull this unit out of Krakow. And if we can do all of that with our Blitz attack, we may not need the regular attack, but we'll still have a regular attack that we could potentially use to try again someplace. We may not have the same bonuses, but that would be the attempt there, and then we would basically get the reserve movement at the very tail end. If we've cleared out enough of the Polish units, if we need to rearrange any units, we could potentially do that. So that's what we're going to try to achieve here. So we've got to do operational movement. One movement point per regular hex. If you cross a river, that's an extra one. But if you're using a road or rail, it's a half movement point. So not going to be a huge deal. But again, we're going to have these guys just slide over here. They're going to help the attack on this unit when the time comes. We're going to have this HQ move up to here. And then I'm going to have this guy move like so. So he's lined up. We're going to have this armor unit kind of float our way down here. And then we're going to have, I think, these guys go just right here, maybe. And I think that's what we want to do for the attacks. I think. I'm not sure if it's going to get any better, better than this, potentially. But what we're going to be wanting to try to do is, let's see, double check how I want to do this, be having, having some subsection of these guys attack here eventually, having a set of guys here attack here, have these stacks attack here. And trying to think if there's any, what else can I maybe have happen here? But I think that's going to be the best thing that we can do for the moment. And again, we're leaving this lane open. I'm going to look at this a bit more now that I've done the movement. I think this is what I want. I want the armor here for the shift bonuses so we can make sure to get as far right on the combat results table as possible. And the way that the combat results table is going to work, is this denotes the step losses for attacker defender as well as some of the retreat results. So attacker defeated, an exchange, retreats, and what we really want are a high number of retreats across all the actions that we want. But we certainly want to be as high on the combat results table as possible. That will ensure that, even if we don't get all the retreats we want, we're going to do step losses that will either make it easier for the regular attack phase to be successful, um, or or something along those lines. I guess that's the key thing. Um, so I think that's the movement I want. I'm going to take a minute and make sure, maybe make some adjustments if I need to, and we'll start looking at the actual blitz combat, the combat phase, starting with the blitz segment. And I should point out, everybody, these guys are, everybody is within the 2 hex blitz range. So all stacks that we have here will be able to conduct blitz combat. They are blitz enabled, so to speak, and they'll be able to gain that benefit. And then we still have the Air Force providing additional shifts, column shifts for us that will help to offset the defense of the cities if we end up having to attack the cities themselves, hoping we don't have to do that. Okay, so let's actually try to rock and roll with the combat phase. And again, we're going to start with the blitz combat phase. Everybody's in range of the blitz marker, so we're all good to go. We're all blitz enabled to operate here. And so if I just move this out of the way for a second, we're going to start with the attack on this single step, 1 defense point Polish unit. We're going to attack here with this unit, and by golly, I'm going to use this guy too. And now you might ask why, why do that? It's overkill, isn't it? And maybe this is where I shouldn't have combined units, because we have this 3-step unit, and we could have done just as good, or if not better, by having this be 2 units instead of 1, but we'll see what happens. So we're not going to attack with this guy. We're going to leave him and this unit open to attack here, but these 2 and this guy will attack this unit. Now it's pretty much overkill as far as the ratio is concerned. So we have 3, 5, we have 10 to 1, and we would, so functionally it's 9 to 1 on the chart here. We even get a shift column to the right, but we're maxed out via the armor unit. And so the reason why we want to make sure to use the armor unit is it's going to give us a exploitation advance after combat. So we're going to roll a die. We are going to want a 1, 2, or 3 is the most ideal result. A 1 is the best. So we'll roll die, and we get the 1. So that is a retreat of 3. So we do retreats first. So we're going to do 1, 2, and now this guy has to retreat. He can't, with the Warsaw garrison, we can't retreat here. We're not going to want to retreat there because that is a Zoc. There's no Zocs here or here, and so we could conceivably retreat back. I think this is like the cleanest retreat, but now we can see Warsaw is empty due to the retreat, and we also take 2 step losses, which it doesn't really matter which step losses I pick. The owner can just pick. I'll just say get rid of this unit, so they're dead, and this unit is there. And that's right. The actual number attrition losses on the results table happens to the whole stack after retreating. So despite that unit not starting, this unit not starting in the defending hex, they can be included for losses as far as I can tell. Maybe I got that wrong, but that seems to be the case. Now we're going to do the advance after combat. And what's going to be really important here is if I said we're going to advance like that, that also, because we had attacked with this armor unit, we can do an exploitation, which allows us, we can advance, because we have a friend in the enemy Zocs, we can extend, and then similarly, we can extend out to here like so. And so we have captured Warsaw without directly attacking Warsaw by focusing all of our effort in a single point, or a lot of effort in a single point, maximizing our effectiveness, and then forcing and changing the situation to what is effectively a rout and pushing these units out of here. So that's a successful attack for us there. The next one that I'm going to do, I think, is going to be this one here. And we're going to have 2, 7 against 1, 7 to 1. That puts us on the, this spot. The armor would give us a shift to the right, and technically the air would also give us a shift to the right. So we're maxed out once again. And so we're going to roll, and this time we get a 4. So we only retreat twice, but it's going to go, where's this guy going to retreat? Well, he's got only one choice. It's to link up with these guys. So 1 and then 2, and we take 2 step losses. So again, I'll just, for simplicity's sake, we'll remove this unit. And now, again, we get the exploitation. We can say, advance, boom, 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 and maybe, let's see, doesn't matter how I exploit. I mean, it looks like I'm good to actually have these guys advance like this. I don't see anything stopping us from doing that. So advance and exploit out. So now we've taken Warsaw, we've taken Krakow, all somewhat indirectly leveraging our breakthrough. And now we're going to have our final attack for the Blitz, which is going to be not here, but here. And we'll use this set of units right here. Now, attacking over the river doesn't matter because we're attacking this hex from not over the river. And so we'll have a total of 10 to 1. This is another 9 to 1 die roll. So we'll roll for that. And what do we get? We got a 2. So he's going to retreat. The only place he can really safely retreat to would be here. So he's got to retreat 3. So he retreats to here. And then, let's see, 3. So he's got to retreat there. And now he's got 2 more retreats to do, but he's got a problem. They can no longer retreat into a buddy hex, a hex with another unit of theirs. Yeah, it cannot retreat because it can't retreat into a Zoc. And so I believe we're going to take additional step losses. So let me double check the Zoc thing. This may matter. Okay, didn't want to have to second guess myself, but yes. Okay, so we rolled a 2. We retreat 1. We have 2 more retreats to take, but we can't. We can't retreat into Zocs. We have nowhere friendly to go, and so we're going to take 2 step losses for the retreats that needed to be taken, that could not be taken. And then finally, there is an attrition loss, and so this unit takes a step of attrition loss. Now, these guys don't have armor, so they can advance after combat, and just, I guess for the sake of things, we'll advance him into Danzig. So now we have that was just the Blitz combat, right? So we're actually good to go for the regular combat. I don't believe that I'm able to attack empty hexes. 'Cause, 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 'cause I could get this wrong. I don't. It says if an attack is declared against a hex that contains an enemy detachment or logistics marker and no enemy ground units, the attack automatically succeeds. That still implies there's something to attack there. So in the regular combat phase, what we could do if we wanted to is we could try to make some attacks here. We don't need to. Then at the very tail end of all of this, right, we'd say the combat phase is over. We don't need to do anything more. Let's see, there's no. Okay, so the blitz marker is gone, so we finished with that. That gets removed in the markers phase. And then we have reserve movement. So it's important. It's important why we pushed all these guys back, because during reserve movement, a unit cannot move into or out of a hex containing an EZOC. An armor unit cannot conduct an overrun, and so on and so forth. Well, the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to move, let's say, that HQ as part of reserve movement into Posen there, and I believe that gives us the victory in the scenario. I'll double check there's no movement restrictions. I think we're good. Yeah. If I've gotten any of this wrong, I implore someone to tell me, but I think we just completed the scenario successfully. Let's see, we did, yeah, reserve movement, we did our combat phase, we did our blitz combat, we didn't have to do any additional combat, if, you know, and let's see, yes, the victory, if it controls Posen, Krakow, and Warsaw at the end of the Axis reserve movement phase. Yes, that's true. And I should also point out that in terms of control, because we don't have any detachment markers to use here, we also don't have any other sort of like control markers to distribute. To actually be in control requires a unit to be in the hex in this scenario. So we got all three. That's it, guys. We did it. we figured out the puzzle. And I'll say I feel a little bit better about this whole chasing a unit far away thing, because as we're able to demonstrate, like we can advance all the way through. So it's not necessarily just bouncing someone far away, but we're maybe actively pursuing them, and that's a little easier to swallow as we like ventured our way into Warsaw. But there could have been a situation, if we didn't have enough units, that Zox would have kept us from getting into Warsaw right away, and then they would have left Warsaw unattended, but maybe we couldn't get to it. There's some weird permutations of that. And in a true campaign situation where things exist after this series of activations, well, what have we maybe have to worry about? Are there any like suicide last ditch attacks these guys could try to do here? Maybe. We also probably would have had different units or resources at our disposal to launch this and succeed. But I'm pretty happy with the result. I think I had figured it out after one. I tried to do this off camera and realizing how the retreat rules work. I had to re-examine it. So the key, if you're wanting to play this scenario again, attack units in such a way to indirectly get to where you want to go, or at least free up the hexes. And if you're using your armor, you can do the exploitation advance after combat version to run and make some gains. Now, the thing I had to really watch out for here was the reserve movement. Apparently, you can't attack empties, that's something that's in a lot of war games. So I had to be careful if I couldn't get into here during the combat phase. If there was one step left, I would have attacked with everybody here. But I managed to have the reserve movement, so I could move in fresh and easy and clean, and then everything else, was basically in nice, real good shape there to finish the scenario. So As far as my thoughts on this goes, again, it is very different and weird for me compared to other systems that I'm used to playing. I think this scenario does force you, if you want to succeed at it, it forces you to understand the mechanics to a stronger degree than maybe other training games for war games would do. But again, the situation, the constraint on time, the constraint on positioning, and the setup of the units, and like just knowing how far you're going to get in the one action, puts a lot of tightness around it. And what I have to wonder is, if we play Barbarossa, how much of the tactics that I just used even apply, right? Because we're really working with a very different situation on the East Front, or even in France, it would just be a different situation. Our goals would be slightly different. We might be less worried about pushing the units a certain way rather than just getting into the hexes that we need. But as I mentioned, like as you could see here, the Zocs, the unit positions, advancing too much creates other problems. And this feels really weird for me. So I don't know. I'm going to have to see as I play through other scenarios and other training bits here how I feel about it all. But I'm glad that I was able to complete the scenario or figure out the key to victory here. I hope this was educational for you. If I got something grossly wrong, please let me know, and maybe I'll do a redo here. Um, but I hope this was educational, informative, entertaining, and we'll see more Axis Empire stuff in the near future. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay, really quick. There's a chance, just a chance, that I got something wrong. And I want to just show quickly what that is. Sorry, the video is not actually over. When we had our attack, we had somebody in here. We had somebody here, more or less. I think, because I had my units positioned over here like this, that there's not a Zoc being projected into this hex. So when we forced the retreat, he could have gone here and ultimately gotten removed anyway. These guys could have advanced after combat, and then we would be left with a regular attack on Posen. Now, I could have avoided that situation by breaking this unit down into some constituent little guys like this, and having, say, like, let's just turn him into a two-stepper and take this guy, and having moved him right here, well, that would have forced the result that we ended up with. So it was perfectly within my power to do it that way. Now, if we said, I'm too dumb to have done that, and this guy retreats, gets destroyed, these guys are all here. In the regular combat phase, we would attack Posen. We would have, 10, 12, 12 to 2, which would be 6 to 1. We would be shifted 1 left because we're dealing with a city, which would be 1 shift to the left. But we would then have a shift back to the right for the HQ, because I've not used the HQ benefit. Involved in an attack, it shifts to the right. So we'd be rolling on the 6 to 1, 8 to 1, the second best column. And, basically every die roll result except a 6, actually no, any die result would eliminate this 2-step unit. And so no matter what we rolled, this guy would be eliminated, and we'd have somebody advance after combat, and we would still win the scenario. So if you caught that and you were preparing to write a comment, I've preempted you. I had done the critical parts over here, I believe, and then this was the only thing that I maybe didn't do quite right. But the way I had situated things, there's any number of ways I would have completed the scenario and won it. So there you go. Just a quick corrective comment. I think someone can confirm that for me, but I believe, that because of the river, I don't know that there's a Zoc in that hex, according to the Zoc rules. And Well, let's see. If that's considered an all-C hex side, which it sure looks like it is. So, yeah, anyway. There you go, guys. Now for realsies, take care, keep gaming. See you in the next one.